What is GDP and why is it important? GDP is short for Gross Domestic Product. GDP is one of the most important economic indicators that's used to determine the health of a country's economy. What GDP does is it measures the total dollar value of all goods and services produced over a period of time, most commonly monthly, quarterly, or annually. Calculating GDP can be tricky, but there are a few ways to do it. One way is to add up what everyone in the country earned during the period being measured, and there you go. They call this the income approach. Another way is to add up what everyone spent during the period. They call this the expenditure method. The expenditure method is actually the most popular method. Here's the formula for calculating GDP using this approach. C is consumption, which is like consumer spending. I is for investments, which calculates business spending. G is for government, which analyzes government spending. And then there's X and M, which stand for exports and imports. Now, each piece of this calculation is important and plays a role in understanding where the economy stands. Consumer spending is the largest component of the whole puzzle, generally representing more than 2/3 of the GDP number in the United States. This is one of the reasons that consumer confidence is so closely watched by stock market economists. If consumer confidence is high and consumers are spending, it is likely that GDP will keep moving higher, which represents a stronger, growing economy. Business investments occur when a company invests in its own business. So maybe they are buying a new manufacturing plant or upgrading a facility. This is an important piece because this represents the ability of the economy as a whole to produce more goods and services. Imagine businesses stopped investing in any new projects. Well, eventually, the economy would hit its maximum capacity and growth would be impossible, and GDP growth would simply stop. This makes business investments an important component to watch. Government spending is often used to get the economy rolling again. After a recession, when consumer confidence and therefore consumer spending is down and businesses have slowed investments, the government can step in and spend, oftentimes on infrastructure. Hopefully, this will improve the economy by improving the infrastructure and giving people and businesses income to start spending again. Exports and imports are linked. Exports are what is made in the country and then sold abroad, while imports are made out of the country and then sold within the country. You may notice that the formula here is exports minus imports. This is important because if there are more exports than imports, then this is good for the country's growth. They call this a current account surplus. But if there are more imports than exports, they call this a current account deficit, and this slows economic growth. At the end of the day, watching GDP is important because it shows where the economy is. Given the depth of information that the GDP report provides, there are very few economic indicators that offer the same value that GDP does.